Welcome back for another English Learner Portal vlog. Last week, I talked to you about how we can strategically and explicitly go about moving students along the English proficiency scale for speaking and writing. And last week, I referred to the WIDA speaking and writing rubrics as a guide for us. Now, again, like I said last week, if you're not a WIDA state, your state has some kind of measurement tool for speaking and writing. So my first suggestion is to get your hands on that and see how it's broken down. So last week we talked about putting some explicit focus on the word level or on vocabulary. This week we're going to spend some time talking about the sentence level. So that's your column right in the middle of the speaking and writing rubrics. And what these rubrics are asking for is that we move our beginning English speakers from simple sentences with single words, encouraging them to reply and write, speak and write in simple sentences, and then moving students along the continuum as you move up the rubric into more complex sentences and combinations of sentences and variety. And that's our goal for students, is to move them along that continuum. In a lot of what we do, I talk about the sweet spot, or I+1. When we look at the rubric, we need to know where our students are right now. So you can use your annual English language proficiency assessment results. That word was escaping me. But a lot of times those scores are outdated by the time you get around to really working with them. So I would suggest a quick writing sample, give a writing prompt, do a writing sample, and then look at it according to the rubric and see where your students are. When you find their spot on the rubric, your modeling and teaching for that student needs to be 1 to 2 levels higher, at least one. So we're going to pick something from the next proficiency level. So let's say we have simple sentences going on. A couple of them are getting a little more complex, but it's still pretty simple. I'd put them around a level 2. So I'm going to look at level 3 and pull some things from there that I can make sure I'm modeling and explicitly teaching in writing and expecting. So when students go back to revise, I can say, remember, I want you to combine some sentences using and. Or remember, we talked about how to compare and contrast, and we said, but as a result, therefore, try to put some of that in your writing. So you are working with them to move up one level. And you can have those conversations with the students to say, right now, your writing is a 2. To become a 3, these are some things that we need for you to include in your writing and your speaking. And I'm going to keep reminding you and prompting you and asking you to edit for those things as we go, because that's what's going to grow you as a writer. So I have one strategy that I like to use with students that is not very new and different. So you're probably already using sentence starters and sentence frames in some way. But like always, here in English Learner Portal, we like to take what you're already doing and add a little tweak to make it even more effective and targeted. So here's the tweak. If you are providing sentence frames for your students, that's awesome. It's a great way to get students to start speaking and to start writing when they're stuck and they don't know how to get it going. If we want to grow the speaking and writing, then we need to have a range of sentence frames or paragraph frames that target specific proficiency levels. So I'm going to show you a clip from a classroom model lesson that we did, and we used the book Tops and Bottoms. Here's a glimpse at the cover and the author. We want to make sure we give credit, but we used this text as a read aloud. And then we talked about cause and effect language. We talked about the cause and effect language. We made a chart, an anchor chart with the different ways, if you say but or so or therefore, We also took pieces from the text and had students put them together in cause and effect matches. So we had a beginning level that used a lot of pictures, and then we had a more advanced level that was all in text. And so with this vlog, you can get the download of our lesson planner and the manipulatives, the matching cards that we used. There's a copy there for you. Not perfect in any way. This was like quick teacher planning because we don't expect perfection. We worked through, practiced the language, talked about the story. So you're going to step into the lesson right when we're moving into the writing part. So we'd like to use all of the read aloud and discussion information and oral language development to flow then into a writing lesson, which really helps develop both the speaking and the writing. So we're picking up this lesson on day 2 when they've already done the read aloud. They did that the previous day with Adriana, who was there with me. And then on day 2, we're moving into the writing. So take a look at how we use a frame. I want to say first that these students were last assessed around a level 2 in writing. Of course, they're up and down depending on vocabulary or sentence or discourse, but they're about a level 2. So my goal for them is to push them into some more extended writing. They'll write quick little sentences and they can speak a lot more than they write. So I'm using their oral language that we discussed to move them into the writing. My target for them, you won't see differentiation here in the sentence frame because they're all about the same level. This was a group pulled together, a homogeneous group. So our goal is to move them into a more complex series of sentences. And we're starting with just a couple little tweaks and getting them used to that. And then we'll come back after the lesson and I'll talk to you about what that might have looked like if it were a level 1 student or a level 5 student and how we would differentiate that from there. So take a look into this lesson with some second graders. So we're going to do this. We're going to go
action, like
3, 2, 1, and then action, and then you have to stop talking and be like perfect students. Okay, you ready?
like a movie.
3, 2, 1, action. All right, you ready? All right, so the other day you were working with Miss Brown and you listened to the story. That was Miss Brown.
Oh.
And you listened to the story about who?
Food big husband. No, bear and hair.
A bear and a hare, do you remember? And tops and bottoms, right. So all those pictures Miss Brown showed you were up there on the board if you forget. You talked about the bear and the hare, and we talked about tops and bottoms. All right, look here. It's up here. I can identify a problem and solution in a story. I can explain the problem and solution in writing. Okay, we said we can identify a problem. What's identify? What is it?
Like those things. Check it.
Check it? Okay.
Like
We
something
could check it.
Something you hit, like with a circle on it, and it's both circles and a long thing, hit it.
All right, so when we identify the problem, that means we find it, we show it.
Instead of shoe.
Explain what you're thinking.
Fine.
The problem is when something goes wrong or something happens, what's a solution?
A solution is like a problem. A problem,
One at a time.
A bear runs the bottom, then the hare runs the top. The top is the girl, now the bottom is the bear. And bear said you on the both of them. Then he said he's gonna make his own garden and get him middle one and both of them.
Right, so the problem was something went wrong that he didn't like, right?
Yeah.
And then the solution was he came up with a way to fix the problem.
Because he's going to make a garden of himself.
He wanted to make one of his own, right? So we're going to talk about the problems and the solutions.
But they never be partners.
They kept tricking him.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the problems and solutions in the story, and then you guys are going to write down your ideas. Can you tell me that again? So what was the solution?
The solution was they made a deal about getting that helping each other with the bottom and the top. The bottom was the bad one, the bottom one is the good one. Now, here said he went the other one, so here and Bear said he went the other one. The other one was the good one, the other one was the bad one now.
Okay, so you're going to write, so, okay. What do you have there, sir?
Solution. How to spell solution?
Look in the objective there. Do you see it?
SOLUTION.
That's it. You got it. Hare wanted food, but Bear
I love to spell it. I saw it.
tricking him. Bear was tricking him.
I
Okay.
saw it.
3, 2, 1, action.
Hare wanted food, but Bear kept tricking him. So Bear's solution was to make a garden by itself.
2, 1, action.
Hare wanted food, but Bear took his food. He planted his own food.
Okay, welcome back. They're adorable, aren't they? Like, so full of energy, but so willing to learn. And I hope you noticed that there's speaking and reading and writing all in there because they practiced and practiced and practiced and reread their sentences over and over. Just as they were writing, one of the things I focused on with them is to go to each student and say, okay, read to me what you have. Read to me what you have. They read those sentences so many times in that 30 minutes that we were together. That is consistently building a higher level of literacy for them because the text they were writing is definitely above their independent reading level. So again, there's a lot of bang for buck in this kind of lesson. So I mentioned before that I would tell you what I would do to move that up or down. A lot of folks are using sentence frames like this, which is awesome. But here's the tweak and challenge that I give you. This was planned for one specific level of student. What I want you to think about is when you have different proficiency levels. Here's the differentiation part. My frame needs to be different for my level 1 writer than it is for my level 3 target, like this group, than it is for my group that I'm trying to move toward that 5 or that English proficient level. So thinking about who's in front of you, when I'm in a classroom and I'm looking for differentiation, I want to see differentiated frames. But how do we push them to a higher level? So if we're speaking and writing, I would love to see a beginning level frame if you have beginners. If you don't, there's no sense going there because we're going to keep our expectations moving forward. An intermediate level frame and an advanced level frame. So here in our differentiated language planner, you see a couple of examples of how you could differentiate that from beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The key is you want to keep everyone, regardless of their proficiency level, focused on speaking and writing about cause and effect. And it gets a little tricky with the beginners sometimes. But again, going back to look at that rubric, what is the expectation? And how can I set up a frame to match where I want that student to be? There's a great video on the WIDA website. If you go under Teach and then Standards in Action, there's a video there on the WIDA website by Andy Mizell, and he uses a lot of leveled frame choices in the lesson that's on that website, so I highly recommend checking that out for another example as well. Next week, we're going to come back with another strategy for developing the sentence level because I feel like there are so many powerful strategies there that are just tiny tweaks And we're going to spend a couple weeks at the sentence level.